Hi, I'm Brian Bish. I'm from Duluth, Minnesota, and I'll be representing Minnesota here today at the Best of the U.S. Championship in Excelsior, Minnesota.
And where did you qualify at this year, Brian?
Our qualifier was the Lake Waconia Triathlon in Waconia, which is just a little bit southwest of here.
And how did you race last year at this event?
Last year, I ended up third in the race. Second place was Craig Greenslet, and Christopher Martin from New Jersey was ahead of me by like 25 seconds or 30 seconds or something. He was the winner.
Well, last year's a little bit shorter. It was like maybe 2/3 the distance of an Olympic try. And, I don't know if that favored me, didn't favor me. This year it's an actual Olympic distance triathlon. And longer bike, a little bit more difficult bike, longer run. Hopefully that favors me.
Chris Martin from Lawrenceville, New Jersey, and I qualified at the New Jersey State Triathlon.
And you kind of have a little soft spot in your heart for Best of the U.S. defending champ.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about last year compared to this year, course-wise. Different course, different race format this year. How does that suit you?
Well, for me, the bike being my strength, it's kind of that's the main part I concentrate on. Last year the bike was relatively short, so this year it's kind of nice that it's longer relative to the other distances. But I like kind of the longer, more steady climbs like we had at Timberman, which we don't hear. It's just lots of rolling and winds. So I race hard on the bike and hang on for dear life on the runs. So for most of the time getting to the finish line is just a sense of relief, because most of the time I'm just running with fear.
On Saturday, September 16th, in Excelsior, Minnesota, 81 invited triathletes took on the second annual Best of the U.S. Championship. In the men's race, a star-studded lineup including last year's champion Christopher Martin from New Jersey, Colorado's Craig Greenslet, and third-place finisher Brian Bish were all on the line. In the women, defending champion Margie Shapiro, who turned professional after last year's season, was not on the line. Runner-up Wendy Mader of Colorado was in attendance, along with Lieutenant Colonel Heidi Grimm of New York. The Best of the U.S. Championship Series was a concept devised by Jerry and Trudy McNeil of Midwest Events. The concept was brought about in order to find the best amateur in the United States. They qualified at different state qualifiers throughout the country, selecting one male and one female from each state to represent in the national championships, which culminated this year on the shores of Lake Minnetonka in Minnesota.
If flexibility was the fourth event, I'd be better.
Whoa, look at that!
Athletes were met with howling winds and spitting rains as they started the 1.5K swim in Lake Minnetonka. And with the shifting weather weighing heavily on his mind, race director Ross Rogney took all the athletes aside in a pre-race swim briefing and made sure to tell them that the buoys were shifting in the water. While they were in the water, the final buoy was untying itself and was drifting off course. Two former standout NCAA swimmers were the first two swimmers out of the water. Bruce Gennari, who was a former University of Alabama swimmer, was first out in 17:05, and second out, 8 seconds behind, was Georgia Tech alum David Silver. And even though the two frontrunners carried over 2 minutes ahead of 19-year-old Daniel Agnew of Oklahoma into the transition, race directors noticed that the two had followed the lead kayaker and had missed the final buoy, and it was this trick by Mother Nature that caused over 39 2-minute penalties for going off course in the swim leg.
Barrett, top 10 finish.
Minnesota, congratulations, Jason.
Ladies and gentlemen, 22 years old, Scott Redahoff. Scott did his first woman is out as well. First out for the women. We're ahead of Jillian Peterson.
The women had the same problem as the men, and Missouri's Jillian Peterson was first out of the water despite missing the final buoy and exited 22 seconds ahead of Colorado's Wendy Mader, who was also last year's runner-up.
Championship last year representing Iowa.
Out on the bike course, the lead remained the same as Bruce Gennari pounded out a wicked bike split and was followed by Silver, representing the state of Georgia. But the man moving up in the standings was Maryland's Philippe Kazub. Out onto the bike course, Colorado's Mater quickly caught Peterson and overtook her for the lead. But behind her, Florida's Lotta Brannigan and New York's Lieutenant Colonel Heidi Grimm moved up in the rankings to the second and third respectively. It was Wendy Mater and Lotta Brannigan who exited into transition 2 at the same time.
The price of leading, it doesn't hurt the rest of their performance. The U.S., these two women were both...
Out onto the run, it was Gennari who held the lead with Silver trailing and Kazub in third place, quickly catching the other two. And at the start of the second 5K loop, Silver passed Gennari to overtake Tennessean and break into the lead. Silver was able to outpace Gennari and cross the line in first place, with Kazub, who had spent 5 years recovering from a foot injury, crossing the line in second place 22 seconds behind. Rounding out the podium was last year's defending champion Christopher Martin of New Jersey. And Gennari, after leading the swim for most of the day and leading the bike, was bumped off the podium and finished in fourth place overall. Grimm was the big gainer on the day and used sub-6-minute miles over the 10K course to bring down Brannigan and cross the line in first place. Brannigan finished as the runner-up for Florida, and in third place from the state of Washington was Tracy Orcutt.